Call to order, Town of Florence special meeting. Town of Florence Planning and Zoning Commission and the general public that a special meeting of the Florence Planning and Zoning Commission is being held Thursday, April 21st, 2016 at the Town Council Chambers located at 775 North Main Street, Florence, Arizona. Mr. Olgin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir, I will. Chairman Franzo.
Present.
Vice Chair Patrick.
Present.
Commissioner Bell.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's defective, Gilbert.
It's not working?
If I get it just right, it will.
Okay, we'll look into that next time.
Okay. Discussion, approval, disapproval of the minutes of the regular meeting conducted on March 17th, 2016. We all have a copy of the minutes?
Yes.
Any discussion?
I have none. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion from Commissioner Bell, seconded by Commissioner or Vice Chairman Polchuk. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The minutes are approved. Work session. We'll adjourn to a work session for the, what in the heck is it? Sign code. Let's go downstairs.
If you want to, I'll come down and sit here in front
Yeah.
of the work session. That'd be great. Thank you.
I don't need to.
Chair, members of the Planning Commission, and for those listening or watching, we have been working on an update of our sign code for a while now, and that is in response to a couple of things. Number one, it was time to update the sign code. That we knew there were some things that needed to be improved. Then there was this infamous case that's kind of turned the world of the signs and related things upside down in the town of Gilbert. It was a Supreme Court case. And it really changed how we looked at sign codes, and that's actually leading into a whole lot of other realms. So with that, we've gone to workshops, we've looked at model codes that are being developed out there, we've contacted League of Cities, attorney associations, municipal associations. We've been looking at everything that's been evolving out there. There hasn't really been a new model code in the state of Arizona that's been adopted that we could just say, hey, let's piggyback on that, because I think people have been hesitant to be the first ones out there with a new code post-Supreme Court action. So we went ahead and took it upon ourselves to take the initiative under council's direction, of course, to work on the sign code. So we put together a committee of different folks that worked for the town and folks outside of the town, and of course, Mr. Pranzo, you have helped us with that committee. We've developed a few drafts along the way. We developed the current working draft, and it's obviously still marked draft in very large letters because it is a work in progress. But what we've done is we're circulating that, and we're sharing it with people so that we can get feedback. And I've already got a few pages of comments collected, and we're going to go ahead and continue to collect comments and then work them into a revised document. So what our plan is this month is to have this little discussion here today, and then also next week have another similar session with the HDAC, the Historic District Advisory Commission, and then also we have a little forum set with the Chamber of Commerce next week as well. So we're reaching out to the business community and the stakeholders out there, and then a goal would be probably next month or soon thereafter, depending on the council schedule, but to go in front of council with the work session, continue that refinement, and then work towards then getting a final document put together and doing the adoption process. That's when we're going to circle back here because we have to bring you a document that we would get your recommendation on, and then we would bring that to the council for adoption. There's also been some new stuff coming out lately from Goldwater Institute that has some opinions on the sign code, and we want to consider those as well. So, but some of the issues we're addressing in the sign code is, the big picture stuff is, there's the intent now, based on this case and all the discussions that have been evolving, is that we need to make the sign code as short and sweet, as simplistic as possible, number one. Average person needs to be able to read it and know what it means. So we know even in this draft we have some improvements to make. It's night and day better than the previous one. But we'll continue to refine that. Number two, we need to get to the point where there are very few, if any, we want to get to the point where people can regulate, where we can regulate the sign code, and it has nothing to do based on what the sign says. Okay, so content neutrality is a huge issue. We should regulate signs based on the size, where they're placed, how they're placed structurally. Do they have any electricity? Are they lit or not lit? How tall are they? How wide are they? What's the area of the sign? What are even the materials of them? But in no case should we ever look at what the sign says. So, and that was a huge issue in the Gilbert case. There were different types of temporary signs that they regulated differently based on what the sign message said. And I think hindsight, we can all look at that and say, yeah, that doesn't really make sense, does it? So the other areas that we wanted to improve upon in the sign code is to provide some opportunities actually for some larger signs, particularly along the highway corridors, because the code was a little restrictive in that area. So taller monument signs along the busier highway corridors, and also greater sign area. And then also continue our course that we've already taken on the promotional signs, the banners and things like that, to be a little bit more accommodating on those types of promotional signs, which really help businesses survive, particularly as we continue slowly crawl out of this long recession. Also, the technology since the last code was written has changed so dramatically that we wanted to introduce a lot of language in here about electronic message signs, digital technology, lighting standards, and things like that. And then also there is one other area that's addressed in here, which I'm assuming it's going to evolve one way or another, and it may get support of the town or may not. But that is consideration potentially for some off-premise advertising signs, which people generally know as billboards. So the discussions we've been having have also, we've also embraced talking to the different sign associations that are out there, including, they kind of divide themselves. There's the on-premise sign folks and the off-premise sign folks. AKA the billboard industry. And we've been talking to them and trying to understand that industry, because I know it used to be a little bit taboo, and for a while they were all banned, and then all you saw out there was some signs that were grandfathered, they were non-conforming, and if they were to fall down, then they never go up again. But you've seen this evolution occur now where in other cities, you're seeing these larger signs go up again. And the technology has actually made them better signs than they ever were, because before, if you had a billboard sign, it had one fixed message on it, and it's there for 6 months, 8 months, a year, depending on what the lease terms are. It doesn't change. It's just, and so it's not extremely effective, and it's not particularly good in a smaller community, because typically if you have a sign like that, an outside commercial business will buy the right to that sign, and then it doesn't benefit the local businesses. So in talking to the billboard industry, or they kind of want to get away from that terminology, they call it the off-premise advertising sign. So in talking to them, they said the benefit of, if you do those types of signs, to go with the digital technology. And what they have found is that you can get potentially 40 to 50 to maybe to 60% of the usage on those signs as being locally oriented businesses. So maybe not all exactly in the Florence area, but maybe at least in the region. Versus if we got one sign, it might be for something that could be in the valley, or even in Coolidge or Casa Grande. So the reason is because when you do a digital sign, you have the opportunity to get 6 to 8 users, conceivably more, on there, and that message can change. And so now you get more people using that same space. The other benefit of those signs is that the way that we've structured how we would consider them is that they would require a use permit, and through that process the town would potentially be able to work with those entities to get advertising space on the sign, so that we would have something to use to promote for local events, home tour, Christmas on Main, whatever it happened to be, Prada, different things like that. Because right now we're limited to, putting up, banners here and there, stringing them across Main Street, using Facebook, of course, and all those things. But this does kind of open the door to maybe another opportunity that could be out there. So it's kind of bold, but I think it's worthy of discussion at least. So what I wanted to do tonight is probably not walk through this like inch by inch, but I wanted to give you the I know I know you're disappointed in that. But what I wanted to say is, if you've had opportunity to look at it, and I know you've already shared comments with me, but Gary, Chairman Pronzo, but I know if you've looked at it and you have comments already and you want to share them today, great. If you want to continue looking at it, redline the document, send it to me, and/or send me some bullet points to say, what about this, or what about that, or I don't understand this section. That'll be really helpful for us, because the more eyes we have on it, and remember, Bell, you're a business person, so you can speak from the perspective of a business owner, and so the more eyes we have on it, the more people we're looking at, I think, with a better document that we'll have at the end of the day. And but you'll find that in the beginning parts, the purpose and the scope and the authority and everything, and going into the definitions and so forth, you find that what we really try to do is establish the reasoning for having sign regulations, and the intent of the content neutrality, and being business friendly. There's very clear, precise definitions in the regulations, and we tried not to, whereas the existing code, it's organized pretty much so that there's a sign regulation for every kind of scenario out there. We've tried to limit the scenarios. And basically, there's these kinds of signs and there's these kinds of signs, and within those categories there's some subsets, but we've tried to streamline it a little bit better, so you're not always saying, well, in a B1 zoning district, you can do this, but in B2, you could do this, and in NO, you can do that, in DC, you can do that. It's like, we really try to streamline it a lot more. You know, some other things that have evolved in the world of signs, vehicle wraps, we're addressing those. People will get a vehicle and just wrap it in something and park it and drive it somewhere. And also we've addressed what they call human signs or sign walkers, which several court cases have been found are constitutionally protected. There have been cities that have tried to regulate that and look at that, and they have not been successful in that because it comes down to really a freedom of expression and freedom of speech issue. If I'm walking down the street carrying something, it shouldn't matter what that thing happens to say on it. You could say peace, it could say save the whales, it could say Kirby's Furniture, whatever it happens to be. So, again, you have to remember when we're looking at this, and I'm going to keep going over this with a fine-tooth comb because we want to make sure that we have that content neutrality in there, that we're not regulating signs based on what they might happen to say. So it's a whole new world in the sign industry, but we're making progress on it, and we'll keep forging forward. Is there any discussion on it tonight? Sir?
Yes.
That'll make my hearing aid work, huh, Gilbert?
Yes, sir.
In reading, I read over it.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Speaking to the mic.
Okay.
Oh,
In reading over it, I noticed that the color and all that doesn't matter, but you mentioned that there's nothing about the language. How about something derogatory? Something that the sign cannot contains derogatory language, racist or derogatory?
yeah, that's an interesting topic. A discussion that we've had with the town attorney. So we do not want to be in the business of regulating the message of the sign or even the colors. Colors are a very sensitive issue. There's been a lot of court cases on the regulation of colors because colors are often part of a corporate identity. So we're not getting into regulating of the colors, regulating of the content. The town attorney does make that distinction. He refers back to the case where you have freedom of speech, but you can't yell fire in a movie theater. There are some limitations. If there is, speech that would be, present a hazard or something like that. Pornography is very, very hard to define. Even the Supreme Court has had challenges defining that. But the town attorney has directed that we don't get into regulating what the sign says,
Content.
but if somebody were to propose a sign and or install a sign that had something on it that was questionable, we would seek legal direction on that and see if it was in our purview to do anything about it. That is a very delicate area. For the most part, if somebody has the benefit of getting a sign on their property, you'd assume that the average person is not going to want to waste it with a message that would not be effective for their business. But occasionally there may be an exception to that, and we'll just have to take that on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I think the First Amendment is very clear, and there have been, probably in the last 40 years, there have been attempts to change the First Amendment to modify it a little bit, but the First Amendment guarantees free speech, and aside from a few exceptions like you're talking about, that means you're free to say whatever you want to say, and that's hard. Some people struggle with that, but if you start limiting on the basis of what someone says that you don't like, well, what if you say something that someone else doesn't like and they want to limit your free speech? So you have to leave it stand as it is. Free speech is free speech.
Am I up?
Yeah.
Okay. Just small stuff, really.
Yes, sir.
On page 16, paragraph K, it reads, Historic District, signs within the Historic District shall conform to the Town of Florence Historic District guidelines, except as allowed by the Historic District Advisory Commission. My problem with that is that it takes the Historic District guidelines and throws them out. Because now you can come in front of the Historic Commission, and if you're persuasive enough, you can get a sign up that violates their guidelines. So it's either one or the other, but it really can't be both.
Yeah,
Chair.
I agree with that. I had a little problem with that as well. It's kind of, it almost leaves the back door open.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to, I think if we have sign regulation for the town, that the historic district should basically follow that same sign regulation. The fact that the historical district is different than the rest of town, I understand that from a certain perspective, but it shouldn't apply to everything.
The thinking, and,
I know.
yeah, Chair,
Yeah, I know.
the thinking on that particular item is that there are guidelines that pertain to the historic district that we've adopted, and that is to remain, and those are in place to maintain our status as an approved historic district under the state and federal guidelines. So we have the guidelines there, but there's flexibility in the guidelines, hence the name that they're guidelines. So there's some stuff that's in the ordinance, and then there's some stuff that's in the guidelines, which is kind of, so the Historic District Advisory Commission has some leeway on making some interpretations. Right now in the sign code, there is nothing that addresses that. So this is an attempt to give that issue a little bit more teeth, but to also continue to allow them to have flexibility in interpreting the guidelines. Another option we could have is, there's been discussion about giving the guidelines more teeth, and maybe certain things in the guidelines are ready. Maybe they're so accepted and so standard now that they're beyond being guidelines, and they need to be looked at, formulated into the ordinance. And then there wouldn't be any question of interpretation or anything being arbitrary.
Let me just give you a little insight to where I'm coming from.
Yes.
Looking at a building's architecture is difficult enough, but fitting a sign to a building's architecture that is historic is very difficult, and it's very subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And so there needs to be parameters, an envelope that these things fit inside of. For instance, you have an Adobe building that shows Adobe, you wouldn't want to put a flashy metal sign on it. Things of this nature. So you have to look at the historic district and decide what its overall architecture is and build guidelines around that. Now, it's some years ago, probably a decade ago, we went through the Chinese fire drill of, at least the Main Street program did, of demonstrating how subjective the historic district guidelines were. Now, I know I'm getting off the subject because this is really about our sign code, but addressing this paragraph, if you really looked at the guidelines at that time, there were no guidelines because nothing worked. You couldn't connect the dots.
Right.
The guidelines have been upgraded, and I personally, because I'm so close to the historic district, want to see a tight fit, that somebody smooth talking got his act together can come in and do something that once it's up, we'll all look at it and say, how did this ever get here? I don't want to go down that road. Enough said on that. I think you got the message. The only other thing I wanted to talk about in keeping the sign code simplistic enough that a person like me can understand it.
Yes.
Under computations, I've read the language, and I think I understand what the language says. But, we're on page 17 under OPQ. It's a narrative that
Yes.
really needs one or more examples
Yes, and
under them.
I think when we sat as our little working committee,
We did talk about
that was one item that we talked about, and so that it would be easy for a layperson to be able to understand how much sign area can I have? Just tell me, so we definitely are. That's already on our list of improving that discussion of how you determine the area of a sign. So thank you.
Other than that, I really have to give you guys a lot of credit. There's a lot of hard work gone into this. From the first draft that I read to where we are today. Oh, and all of the people that worked on that committee. Good job.
Well, thank you. We're going to continue to make progress, and we are truthfully hoping that maybe there is a jurisdiction or two that are the first guinea pigs out there that we can kind of learn some more from. But if
I think it would be great if Florence is the model.
just throw ourselves out there, huh?
That's it.
We may be, because I think we really took the initiative on this before a lot of other places did. And in fact, I saw the Goldwater Institute memo, and they did a survey of a lot of cities, and they found out that a lot of people weren't even working on it yet. And I think that really went off on their radar. And so it did kind of make us feel good that, you know what, we're in the trenches on this already, so.
Well,
We're
there's only
getting
two
there.
ways we can go. Either we set the precedent or we're roadkill.
Yeah.
Either way,
Yeah.
we're there.
I just had some comments about the electronic signage that I think in the case where that applies to the historic district, it seems to me, that it would be out of place in the historic district. And so I don't know if we addressed, I don't remember if it's addressed specifically in here, but the electronic sign. I moved it. Yeah. I think the electronic signage is okay for, for the rest of town in terms of how it's done, as long as it's not overwhelming like some of those can be, like billboards can be overdone. And the billboard people are doing that because they can now, instead of having one sign for 6 months, they can have 10 or 12 or 15 signs for that same 6 months and charge everybody the same rate. So that's why that electronic, that signage is excellent. So, and plus you can change the message in the middle of it. So it's very versatile.
Yeah.
But,
And you can do that all from a central location in Phoenix,
Yes.
which is amazing.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I wouldn't want to see a lot of billboard signs, even on Highway 79.
And the language that we have on there regarding the off-premise signs, if it does survive through this process, is that it would be through a use permit. There would be a limit on them, and I actually got these guidelines from the industry. They said, look at the height of it, look at the clearance of it, look at the area of it, look at the type of technology used. Require it be handled through a use permit, and then also start off with a limitation on them. On top of that, in our guidelines, we do note that they would have to follow the state and federal guidelines. So they could only be located pretty much along certain parts of 79 or 287 that were considered commercial or employment zoned, and they would have to meet certain criteria as far as the separation from the road, the lighting standards. I mean, they have pretty strict guidelines from the state, so it's not going to be something that's easy to do.
Yeah.
But there would, if we go that route, yeah, there would be major limitations. And then I agree with you. In fact, there was a discussion at one point of electronic message sign at Butte and Maine, and it became very, very controversial, and that idea was quickly abandoned, and we ended up with the sign that's there today, which everyone loves, at the National Bank of Arizona,
Yeah.
the historic Florence sign.
Down the road, you're going to have the north-south corridor also.
Down the eventually.
Signs along there.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at some point, other than just having these two-lane state highways, we will have north-south freeway, and there, chances are there's going to be big developments along those, and there will be big signs, and those will all be handled kind of on a case-by-case basis through development agreements and so forth. So,
I
down
just
the
don't
road.
want to feel like I'm coming into Las Vegas as I come down 79.
no, we don't want to feel like we're coming into Vegas.
I think that's, yeah.
Yeah,
That's 20 years out, right?
yeah. No Vegas for Florence.
Oh. Is there anything else?
We'll keep working on it. Like I said, just please feel free to share any comments you may have along the way, and we'll be back at some point for action.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, Vice Chair, Commission, you want to take a short recess to go back up there, get settled in, and then start the meeting, or it's up to you? Okay, if you want to make the announcement.
Light turns green, I will.
Yes, it's on.
Okay. We'll adjourn from the Florence Sign Code review and go back up on stage. All right, Gilbert?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Can I get a copy of the draft?
Oh, sure. Sure.
And the public can get copies of the draft?
It's on the website, yeah.
Yeah, but I need a...
No, I know. We'll get you one. Yeah, if you want anyone, it's on the website.
Sarah, what? I have to read? Next time you guys do documents, try to get reading. So you don't need stuff like this. It doesn't stand.
Oh, wow, thank you.
Doesn't have
All right, we ready?
R4.
We're ready.
Makes it
Carl?
more difficult to read.
Whenever
Okay,
Something like Times New Roman.
all right. Discussion, approval, disapproval? I'm sorry, new business. Travis Armstrong infill incentive plan application PZ 16-29 INF. Mr. Oljean, do we have a presentation?
Yes, I do. Good evening. As you mentioned, this is the infill plan application, item 6A. You have all the material that I have in your packet. Chair, Vice Chair, Commission, and for the camera, my name is Gilbert Olguin. I'm the senior planner. I have the pleasure of giving you the presentation on this case tonight. Working in this town, a historic town, we sometimes are put in unique positions where we have situations due to the historic nature of Florence that we have to address, usually concerning non-conforming issues. In the case with this tonight, Travis Armstrong, who lives here in Florence, recently purchased the property you see in front of you. It's 149 North Central Avenue, also known as APN 202-44075. This property is zoned R16. That's the zoning district for this property. Just to help you with its location, it's kind of to the, I'd say, southeast of town of the core. In front of you is a little map of the core. It is located just south of 11th Street, and I would say east of Central Avenue. Now, here's another image of the property. It's an aerial, kind of a close-up, and it shows you from a bird's eye view the property. When I first talked to Travis about the situation, it looked like to me like it was just a home and with the shed in the back, an accessory use. But as I went down to the site, also with the senior inspector, and we inspected it, from closer view, you could see that the main property is the one that's in front, but the one in the back, that's the one I told you that kind of resembled the shed. It's a little smaller, it's a home. But you can see on here that in the corner here on top, there's an electrical panel already on the property. There's an HVAC unit. There's pop-outs throughout this smaller property. And there's already, it has corrugated metal, just like the main home itself. And it's right here in the back. So there's a lot of evidence that this used to be a separate home. Now, this image here shows you what you saw in the aerial, the two properties on the site. The property, as I mentioned, it belongs to Travis Armstrong. He acquired this parcel late last year. The subject site is approximately 0.17 acres in size, and it's zoned R1, single-family residential zoning. The homes we're talking about, they are older. The bigger of the two homes, it's built back in 1938. The second property, and it's about 1,200 square feet, just over that. The second property, it's a lot smaller, and we estimate it was built around the 60s or 70s. This map here, this is the zoning map of the property. So the main issue at hand is that our current codes only allow one main residence per say every 6,000 square feet in the zoning district. The subject lot, it's too small to be rezoned to allow two homes on a lot. You'd need 12,000 square feet to have two separate properties zoned R16 currently. In addition, the lot is also too small to split to allow each home to exist on its own separate lot. And it would be difficult to support a variance to fix the situation because a variance cannot be granted for a deviation in use and nonconformities that were created by past owners. So this is where the town core incentive plan comes into play. The intent of the infill incentive district was to encourage new investment and to help define these areas and help improve with the character. With that said, this is the second property that we've run into that had this situation. I think it was last year. We had 300 Willow that had the same type of situation with two homes on one lot. So talking with Travis Armstrong and trying to implement this incentive plan, we contend that granting this request would encourage investment within the infill incentive district as new owners are seeking to rehab both structures for residential occupancies. So in conclusion, we found that the town core infill incentive plan was lawfully adopted and the district was created under the rules and guidelines established by the state of Arizona. The town core infill incentive plan seeks to help remedy situations just like this one here. This plan has also been used for apartments with some of the same type of issues, and they were south of town. Approval of this request will address zoning and development standard conformity issues that will allow for the beneficial investment of funds into the subject properties. So with that said, staff recommends the commission send the town council a favorable recommendation on this case. I also wanted to mention that we did not go through a public participation process on this case. It wasn't required. However, with that said, we did post a advertisement in the paper for the upcoming council meeting that's coming up. And that one was going to be next month, I believe, on the 2nd of May. The owners here, if you wish to ask them questions, me and Mark are here if you have questions for us. But that concludes the presentation.
Do you guys have?
No.
Do you have any questions?
Is Mr. Armstrong, is that the,
Could you speak into the mic, sir?
Mr. Armstrong, or do you plan to live in this home yourself?
Wait,
Excuse me.
come up.
If you'd come up and just say your name for the record.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Travis Armstrong, 789 West Liberty Street here in Florence, Arizona. I purchased a home with intent to rehab it. My sister actually occupies the home, and she's coming up to get married here in October. I'm putting it together maybe like wedding present kind of situation. So it'll stay with the family. It'll be occupied by family. My sister, her soon-to-be mother-in-law is a little bit older and stuff and has like a full 4-bedroom house, and so she's talking about occupying the back house just by herself. That's kind of why it's pretty important to get that established and so on.
Mr. Poot?
No, we went through this last year.
Mike?
It's on. Oh, it isn't. The light, there you go. Light doesn't come on. We went through this, like Gilbert said, last year with the other property, and it makes sense to me, and I see no reason not to do it, so.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes, sir.
It's very generous what you're doing for your sister and her future mother-in-law.
Yeah, she's a baby sister. That's what you got to do, you know.
In the future, though, let me just back up one so you can get a mindset of where I am. The town core infill incentive plan is really a good document. And as you know, the code stipulates a minimum of 6,000 square feet. Your lot happens to be 7,000 square feet. Where I get concerned is that the infill plan really doesn't address use. Now, I think it's great the way you're using it, but what I have to think about is if this property becomes a rental later on. Now, rentals in single-family home residential areas, and I hate to say it this way, but sometimes they turn out to be, they can diminish property values and demoralize the people who live around it. If you understand where I'm coming from.
Absolutely, sir. I've grown up in Florence since first grade. You know, I don't have any intentions of leaving town. You know, I only want to do, before proceeding further with some things, I want to make sure to get everything all good by the code before I went.
Excellent.
It won't be a rental to everybody property. Like I said, if my sister's there, it'll be a family member or just a guest house. That's the extent of it, really. It's just the cost impact of doing things. You know, I got to make sure I follow the book on this stuff. So.
No, I understand. And the property, you know, I looked at it today, and as far as the material condition, looking at it from the outside is, you know, it's worth saving. Whereas I can give you an example, the poster child for this ordinance is on the southwest corner of 6th and what, Courts. Bulldozer ready.
I know exactly which property you're talking about.
So I commend you for your effort. You saved the buildings. Do we have any further discussion?
No.
Can I get a motion?
Yeah.
Or I'll make a motion. I move that we recommend approval for the Travis Armstrong Infill Incentive Plan Application PZ 1629 INF. Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Moving on. Presentation for approval or disapproval, Vista Grand at Walker Butte preliminary plat extension, PZ 16-41 PP. Do we have a presentation?
Yes, we do. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the Commission, Will Randolph here, Town Planner, Community Development Department here with Gilbert and Mark. Give you a brief presentation here on the Vista Grande at Walker Butte pre-plat extension, item 6B on the agenda. This is for a additional 6-month extension, and this is on the behalf of a United Engineering Group, which they are working on Hooper LLC. It is a site approximately 150 acres in size and is located west of the Pacific Union Railroad, and it is south of the Hiller Road alignment. Sorry, I don't have a vicinity map there for you. Oh, here we go. So here you can see Hunt Highway, State Trust land to the west, and then the Magic Ranch development, and then Vista Grande is the pre-plat here to the south of this Magic Ranch. So let me just retract here. This pre-plat was extended back in October 2015 to give it 6 months, and here we are in April of 2016, and here is the pre-plat itself showing the road alignments and the lots. It's kind of hard to read some of those details, but I'll explain about it and I'll come back to some other images here. It was roughly for 605 single-family residential lots, just to recollect what we extended back in October of 2015. Average lot sizes were about 6,300 square feet. The subdivision was about 3.92 dwelling units per acre. It does expand our current planning network of green belts and walking trails in that area, which we were definitely wanting to keep the open space with the community. And the zoning, as it says, with the PUD, was within the PUD in single-family R1 residential. Here is roughly the image again. The main access points would be the Walker Butte Road, and then we have a northeast emergency access point coming up to Hunt Highway right here, where my arrow is pointing to. And there is a close-up of that emergency access that we had planned here at the northeast part of the development for emergency vehicles. Again, we still find that this preliminary plat is in the conformance of our zoning codes, and that it definitely has the primary access points into the community, one emergency access, then the main access coming into from the north on the west side of the development. And that concludes my presentation of this pre-plat application here, and that it would extend to October of 2016.
No, I don't have any comment on it. We went through this and we ensured that that road was going to be paved, and it's, what, 4-lane on the backside?
Chair, Vice Chair, Commission, you talking about the secondary access, or are you talking about the main access?
The main access.
Yeah, I believe it was, we spoke about that, and it was going to be utilized as 4 lanes, because there was some issues with,
Yes,
with the traffic getting back and forth and the possibility of it being blocked. And
yes. And then the emergency exit, that was done just in case
yes,
there's a need for getting fire in there, especially if there was a...
just as the secondary point of access, yes.
Yeah.
And just to be utilized for emergency vehicles only.
Only, yeah.
Can I get a motion?
Yeah, I have to read it, which is hard. Make a motion that we approve the plat extension for Vista Grand at Walker Butte, and that's PZ 16-41 PD.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Anthem at Merrill Ranch preliminary plat application, PZ 1630 through PZ 1640 for units 35A, 35B, 37, 41, 43, 45, 47, 49, and 51. Mr. Olgin.
Chair, Vice Chair, Commission, good evening. So I will be doing the presentation on this case. As you already covered the title of the case, I appreciate that. It's kind of long. Now, tonight we have 9 plats, preliminary plats. So I put this map together for you to kind of give you some location as to where they're at. They're actually located right on the east side of Hunt Highway, right in this location here. Here's another map that staff put together that kind of just gives you better perspective of the site. All these in blue, these are all the plots we're talking about tonight. Now, I've decided to spare you the boredom. I'm going to present them all at once, give you some pertinent information regarding each one. As you saw in the report, it'll make it easier, but at the end of the night, when the presentation is done, we'll, if you're so inclined to approve them, we'll need to have you do each one separately. So with that said, I'll move forward. So these plats, you have seen them before, or I should say some of the commissioners have seen them before. They were presented in 2010, I believe 35A Phase 1 and 35B, and I believe the rest of them were came in front of Commission for approval in 2013, as it says in your report. So the owners, which are the Southwest Value Partners, they own these properties that we're talking about tonight, the actual plats. And they are still part of the Anthem at Merrill Ranch community. So, as you know, we're still somewhat recovering from the Great Recession, but things are starting to move forward. There's some demand that's starting to move in all areas around. I'm not saying that the housing market has fully recovered, but because of that, the owners of these plats are wishing to bring them back to the pre-plat level and possibly move forward. So I will start with Unit 35, and before I get to that point, I just wanted to just to state a couple of facts. There's 997 possible lots that are being presented tonight. All of them are per the Anthem at Merrill Ranch PUD, R1 zoning document that was amended in 2008. So we also gave each of you a copy of the PUD book because we put in some information that kind of references the PUD document. I wasn't sure if you gentlemen still had that document that was given out quite a while ago. Mm-hmm. So that was part of the packet, so you could review that. Now, keep in mind that originally when the Anthem Community Project came to us, there was over 11,000 possible lots that could go on this. That's changed. That's been reduced to about 9,000. And the overall density still for this PUD is 3.5 dwelling units per acre. Now, as you know, some of these are a little higher than that, but the overall is still going to be 3.5. So we'll start with Unit 35. Now, these maps are in your book. Each of the plats were given to you, so I'll just give you some of the important points to each one. So Unit 35A, it includes 109 single-family residential lots with 2 points of ingress, egress into the subdivision. Access points for this unit will be through the proposed Units 37 to the north and Unit 33 to the southeast. A typical lot size planned for this is 6,476 square feet with the proposed density of 4.7 dwelling units per acre. and there is a desert wash that's located in proximity to this plat. 35B. This one includes 57 single-family residential lots with 2 points of ingress, egress into the subdivision. For the access points for this unit will be through units 37 to the west and 35A. Typical lot size is 5,950 square feet with the proposed density of 3.22 dwelling acres per unit. There is commercially zoned property that lies to the north. 37. This one has 130 single-family residential lots with 3 points of access. And as the other ones, access through is going to be through the units that surround it. Your typical lot size on this plat is going to be 6,844 square feet with a density of 3.84 dwelling units per acre. There is state trust land that's adjacent to the west. 41. This one has 55 single-family residential lots with 2 points of ingress, egress into the subdivision. The access points for this subdivision will be off of the proposed Mel Ranch Parkway West extension across Hunt Highway and through Unit 43. Typical lot size is 5,487 square feet with a proposed density of 3.6. This is the image that was put together by the applicant that kind of helps you understand the points of access from each unit to the existing unit. 35A is all the way, proposed is all the way to the south. It goes north, and those vacant lots that you see, those are commercial properties. And you keep going to the north, and the rest of the units all the way up to 51 and go all the way to the north. With that said, there's a couple of plats will be coming to you shortly at another meeting that were part of this, but we decided to keep them back and make sure that everything was covered as far as what's required by code. So you saw this map earlier. All the stars represent the points of access. And once again, this just gives you some perspective as to how to get through the actual subdivisions. So now we move on to 43. This one includes 111 single-family residential lots. It's got 3 points of access. 3 points of ingress, egress into the subdivision. Access will be off of Hunt Highway. Typical lot size for this one is 6,233 square feet with the proposed density of 3.96. And we have state land, state trust land is adjacent to the west. 45. This one includes 179 single-family lots with 2 points of ingress, egress into the subdivision. It's also surrounded by other existing units that we're talking about tonight. Typical lot size is 6,192 square feet with 4.42 dwelling units per acre. That's the proposed density. 47. This one includes 130 single-family residential lots with 2 points of ingress, egress into the subdivision. Access points for this will be off of Hunt Highway to the east, and the proposed collector roadway serving units 45, 49, and 51. Typical lot size proposed is 5,874 square feet. Proposed density is 3.67 dwelling units per acre. Then we have 49. We're almost done. Unit 49's got 148 single-family residential lots with 2 points of ingress, egress. Typical lot size for this plat would be 5,715 square feet with a proposed density of 4.16. And then we got 40. Sorry. Now we're at the 51. This one has 78 single-family residential lots with 2 points of ingress and egress into the subdivision. Typical lot size for this one is 5,735 square feet with the proposed density of 4.9 dwelling units per acre. I also wanted to mention that all of these plats include all the green belts, the amenities that go along with the Anthem community. They have an extensive, a huge network of trails and park amenities and pocket parks that exist through all of this once the product is built. And these will all be included in that. They're all under an HOA, an existing HOA that is currently there now. So staff has, I mean, as I said before, these plats have come to commission before and they were approved, but they ran out of time. And at the time did not want to move forward to the final plat stage. So we have no issues with engineering or any of fire issues. I mean, it's all what we've had in the Anthem project. So if you have any questions for staff, I'd be happy to answer them. We have the applicant here tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have for him. And as I said before, if you would approve or disapprove each one separately, the case numbers are in the packet.
You're asking me to go through each one?
Yes, each one's a separate application, sir. So we would need to approve and disapprove.
So you get to group them together, and then I have to go one at a time.
I do apologize.
And there's something wrong with this picture. But I do have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Now, I've come to trust Anthem, and I trust staff. But this is a tremendous amount of paperwork to go through as a commissioner. So, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen this series, Suits, where lawyers just drown each other in paperwork, hoping the opponent doesn't find that one piece of paper that they go to jail on. That's what that felt like. So I got to ask you, now that you've drowned me in paperwork, is there anything in this, all of these plats, that you're uncomfortable with?
Chair, Vice Chair, Commission, no. One thing I forgot to mention was 43 is different than what's approved before, and I did mention it in the report. It has one less lot than previously approved. And I also need to mention that tonight you were given an updated report with the new condition, and I'll go ahead and read it for...
Well, has the applicant seen that condition?
Yes, yes. They have seen it. They were okay with the condition, but let me grab the report real quick. So at the end of your report, under staff recommendations, we added number 4. It was added, and as we said before, it was with talking with the applicants, the property owners, and it was discussed and it was approved by them. And I'll go ahead and read it out loud. It says developer property owner may reduce the number of lots or widen lots within the subject preliminary plat area during the effective approval period without requiring additional town approvals, provided there is no net increase in the subdivision density, no reduction in open space, and the changes do not require changes in any of the street designs. So that was added here recently, and you all got a copy of the report with the added condition when we came in the beginning of the meeting.
This is different from what we normally have in the staff recommendation. What prompted this?
Chair, members of the commission, I want to let you know that actually there is a little bit of, as you can see with actually even the other plat coming forward, we're talking to more and more folks that actually are looking at development coming around. There is some serious interest in these lots on the west side of Hunt Highway, and there may be a land sale transpiring in the future. And one of the concerns that came up is that in order to be responsive to a home builder and be prepared to go, some of these lots are exceptionally deep, like 125 deep, 125 foot deep. They could accommodate wider lots. We wouldn't change any of the engineering on the subdivision, wouldn't increase the density, wouldn't add more lots. But if a builder came in and said, you know what, instead of those 55 by 110 or 115 lots, I want 60 by 110, 115, bam, we had the flexibility of just making the lot wider. Overall, we're going to lose some lots in each unit, but we're going to be able to be responsive to that. So we are really just setting ourselves up for the opportunity to hopefully do some transactions on these parcels. So let me tell you historically, though, what we've done on plats is that if after approval they made a change to the plat where they had to take out a lot, or they said, you know what, we just produced a new model, maybe we brought a design review to you, and the homes were 35, but now they want to do 40s, and so they need an extra 5 foot on the lots. We've made those kinds of changes before because they never changed. They reduced the density, they never changed the open space, they never changed the engineering. They kept the project moving forward, so we've been accommodating on that. The folks that are looking at these transactions wanted a little bit more certainty in how accommodating we would be with those changes, and thus it was inserted into.
Now, how does that affect the county as far as the plats go?
Well, Chair, members of the commission, so what will happen is that this would be a change that would be made before we would get into the final engineering for the final plat. So when the final plat would go to council, it will reflect what we ultimately decided on this preliminary plat, and then that plat is recorded. Now, what we've seen with
So this will not apply to the final plat?
Correct, sir. So when the final plat gets approved and recorded, then to change it, they'd have to actually go back to the council with a re-subdivision to either add or decrease lots.
Gotcha. Okay.
I have a personal question.
Yeah, cool.
On Unit 5035, Phase A, how far is it from Johnson's wastewater?
Could you repeat the numbers again?
Is there a buffer zone? It doesn't show much of a buffer zone here. I'm just curious, how much of a buffer zone is there between the wastewater plant and the first house?
Chair, members of the commission, you know what, I think since Jared is sitting here in the audience, he's been the engineer for Anthem at Merrill Ranch and the engineer on these plats. I think maybe that would be a good opportunity for him to address that question, talking about how that interface occurs between the single-family residential lots and the adjacent Johnson utilities.
Just a personal thing, but
Just an aerial view of that area.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure, Vice Chair. My name is Jared Baxter with Baxter Design Group. I'm the engineer for the Merrill Ranch project. Let's go back to 5A. Probably be right. Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioner, I don't know if you have been, I'm sure you've been out by the project site a number of times. You live here locally. You are familiar with the Johnson Utilities wastewater treatment plant along with well site and their tank site that's surrounding these developments right now. Part of the approval of the Johnson Utility wastewater treatment plant is the berming that happened all around the project itself. The berm is at least 50 feet wide at the bottom, approximately 10 to 12 feet high around it to shelter the plant from adjacent properties around that. The back 35A, which you're approving as a preliminary plat today, does have an additional 10 foot to allow for drainage swell along the back side of that from the runoff of the top of that berm itself. There's no visual impairments between the back of those lots. Those lots will have the traditional block walls to all the subdivisions, so it won't be up against that. Something that will happen at that time too is when development is derived around the wastewater treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant will then be stipulated to build a security fence that we anticipate will either be towards the top of the berm or towards the residential side of the berm itself, in addition to the block wall. Now, there is a provision that they may come back and want to be able to combine that with the developer and make that block wall higher. 6-foot wall is not sufficient for the security measures of that treatment plant. It would have to be at least an 8-foot wall. That anticipated to be worked out with the respective builder at that point in time, Johnson Utilities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing, Commissioners, I apologize for the multiple pre-plats here.
Nah, I thought you did it on purpose, really.
As much as I love to sit here and listen to you recite your motions there, the reasons we approach it this way is we're working very hard to get additional builders down here other than Pulte Homes. I've worked for Pulte Homes since 2003 on this project. I've seen this from its infancy. Speed and the development will speed up significantly if we can entice 2 or 3 different builders to come down here. The way the market is in today's market is nobody wants to come down and grab 1,000 lots at a time. They're a little more conservative than they were in the past in 05, 06. They're looking to come down and grab 40, 50, 60 foot, lots at a time. So by platting it this way, it gives us the flexibility to allow a developer to grab a certain section and a different developer to grab a different section. So there was thought in the madness, and I'm sorry it's causing a little bit
It's
of this
okay.
level, but we do appreciate looking at them.
Actually, I think you'll have the bigger headache with too many different builders in there.
Well, I want progress. That's what I want. And I want to be able to engineer it all. That's what I thought we could do. Any other questions for me?
Yes,
No?
I have a couple of questions. So this remains part of the Anthem PUD.
Very much so, yes. It is included in Anthem.
Okay, now, it was my understanding when Pulte sold this property to Southwest Value Partners that Southwest Value Partners would bring in builders and they would build the same product.
Not the same product. They would build similar standards that would have to come before Planning Commission through a design review process with their product for approval. So they're not going to be building identical products, identical architecture. Now, when I say that, there's still a level of standard that's held in the Anthem community. They have to meet that level of standard, that minimum level. But what I'm trying to anticipate here is when a builder, Shea Homes, for example, or somebody like that comes in, they would still have to present their product through a design review process with Planning Commission. So they're not going to grab Pulte's identical plan, Pulte's identical architecture and start building it.
Okay, and then the other part of that question is, this is all part of Parkside?
Yes, it's anticipated everything west of Hunt Highway will be part of what is considered the Parkside development of Anthem Mountain Ranch.
Okay.
Considered part of the Parkside homeowner, different from the Sun City site.
Yes, so they become part of the HOA?
Yes,
Okay.
they'll be imposed HOA fees. They'll have use to all the HOA amenities in the place. Trail system will connect to them as they build out.
Okay. Okay, I'm good.
Good.
Want to make a motion?
All right, I have a question for Gilbert. Gilbert, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 units, and I've got 11 PZs. How do you want to handle it?
I think I got it figured out.
How do we do that?
Probably we're anticipating 31 and 33 being on there, so probably the last 2 numbers is what you'd have to.
Okay. Give me a second. That was an error. We apologize.
Chair, members of the commission, I think you have the unit numbers. If we could get a recommendation to approve each unit starting with 35A, subject to the conditions in the staff report, and then we'll act on that and keep going to 35B, et cetera, et cetera. I think that would be adequate for tonight's purpose, and we'll translate them to the appropriate PZ numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who wants to start?
I'll make a motion that staff forwards to the council
No, this is approval.
This is approval.
Yes.
approval of Anthem at Merrill Ranch preliminary plot applications, PZ 16-30.
No, Unit 35A.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
just say the unit number.
the PZ overall, and then unit by unit.
Go for units first.
Not on.
I think
I was just going to make the motion as if you had it written in the minutes. PZ 16-30 through PZ 1640 for units 35, so forth.
Approval.
No, each one of
35.
them is separate.
Yeah, right, but we do 35, you do that, and then 35A, 35B.
So you're making a motion to approve.
Chair, Vice Chair, Commission, if you wish to just approve all of them at once, that's going to be fine. We'll just have you say 35A through 51 plats. That's fine with us.
Yeah, I would go ahead and call them out, Chair, members of the commission. I would say a motion would be, if you're so inclined to approve them, I would say motion to approve Anthem at Merrill Ranch preliminary plats, units 35A, 35B, 37, 41, 43, 45, 47, 49, 51. I feel like saying Omaha, subject to the conditions stated in the report.
We got it.
Okay.
I'm glad I'm not the person writing the minutes. All right. I'll move that we approve Anthem at Merrill Ranch preliminary plat application for units 35A, 35B, 37, 41, 43, 45, 47, 49, and 51, subject to the conditions by staff. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Approved. Moving on, staff reports, presentation of the special election on Proposition 408.
Let me, just give me a minute to switch out
Sure.
the presentation. Okay, Chair, Vice Chair, Commission. So we all drew straws, and I was the one that gets to do the last presentation of the night. This is per the staff report, so there will be no discussion. As you know, we have special elections that are coming up, and the manager would like the commissions to be informed, and also the people that are watching us at home. So we'll just get started. There we go. So on August 26, 2014, residents of the town of Florence voted on home rule option, Prop 400, with 52% no and 48% stating yes. So what this essentially did was we were then subject to a state-imposed expenditure limitation until the Florence voters decided otherwise. The town cannot spend money than what was approved during the fiscal year 1979-1980 base amount. What is home rule? Since the town is a political subdivision of the state, in 1980, the voters approved an amendment to the state constitution and created home rule. It actually allows the residents and the town council to determine its own expenditure limitation or restrict the spending to a state-imposed expenditure limitation, regardless of the revenues that we have. Some more images for you to show you parts of the town. Last year's special election, it was on May 19th, 2015. The special election was held. It was Prop 407. We had 78% with the yes vote and 22% with the no vote. What this did was it accomplished, it allowed the town council and the people who live here to retain some control. The special election authorized the town to exceed the expenditure limitation for the existing budget year. This year we have two town elections. We have a special election, which is on May 17th, and we have the home rule optional election, which is August 30th, 2016. For the special election, Prop 408, a yes vote allows the town to determine its own expenditure. limitation for the upcoming fiscal year. A no vote allows the state to determine the town's expenditure for the same fiscal year. For the home rule option, a yes vote would allow the town to determine its own expenditure for the next 4 years. And no would allow the state to determine the town's expenditure for the same 4 years. The May 17th special election. The election has no impact on raising or lowering taxes or fees. It's identical to last year's May special election, no increase to overall expenditures from last year. The voters decide if the annual expenditure limitation is determined by the local control or by the state of Arizona. Voters decide if the town cannot adopt a budget that allows the town to set the expenditure limitation of $15 million in excess of the state-imposed expenditure limitation for the next fiscal year. Now, I won't get into what the actual ballot language is because you have a copy of the actual presentation, but we did put it in the book for you so you could read it. And the May 17th, the special election, same thing. This is the actual ballot language. It's basically just repeating most of what I've already talked about. Impact of services and projects. The list in front of you kind of shows you all the obvious services that the town residents already receive. Town council would need to make $15 million in cuts in services, projects, and personnel if Prop 408 fails. Fiscal responsibility. For the fiscal year 15-16, target budget was presented at Town Council on Tuesday, February 16th. The town has been reducing expenditures by changing the way we do business. We've seen that across the board on all departments, developing the best practices to save money and implementing fiscally conservative practices. And every year, the people within the town participate in the annual adoption of the town budget and setting the expenditure limitation. So the May 17 election info. This basically shows you the three locations where the election is going to be held. This is not a all-mail ballot election. The voters can request early ballots by contacting Pinal County Elections Office. Last day to register to vote is April 18th, and the pamphlet will be mailed out April 25th. Early ballots must be received by May 17th on Election Day. So August 30th home rule election, similar to the August 2014 election. Voted to approve home rule 8 out of the 9 elections that we've had. A town retained local control for 33 out of the last 35 years. The election has no impact on raising and lowering taxes. If passed, the town regains local control for the next 4 years. So important elections that are coming up. If you need more information, there's those 4 contacts in front of you that you can call at any time. They'd be happy to talk to you about it. Since this is a staff report, I don't have any other comments, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Oldine. Call to the public. Commission response. Call to the public for public comment on issues within the jurisdiction of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Individual commission members may respond to criticism made, may ask staff to review a matter raised, or may ask that the matter be put on future agenda. However, members of the commission shall not discuss or take action on any matter during an open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. Is there any public comment? Close call to the public. Call to the commission, current events only. Do we have any current events, gentlemen?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? We're adjourned.